Episode 8 begins at Cat's lair. So in the control room we have Lionel and Snarf. Now Snarf just told Lionel that there's nothing on the screen at the moment and that he should play with him because Lionel had promised him. Then Lionel said that he can't because just a moment ago he thought he had just heard a transmission from the Lunatics. Lionel had boosted up the circus a little, and that's when he heard the voices of Allura and Chilla of the Lunatics. The first voice that Lionel heard was Chilla of the Lunatics mentioning something about the treasure of Dondera. So what Allura was asking Chilla, are you sure that the treasure is hidden somewhere? Then Chilla's voice says, of course I'm sure. It's in the Crystal Canyon, she said. Chilla told Allura that there's no way that the Thundercats are going to find it. That's when the transmission ended. Now, Lionel couldn't help but what's going on in his head, and so he asked, how could the Lunatics know all about the treasure of Dondera? How did they get a hold of it? Well, Snarf said that he isn't sure, but then Lionel had a suspicious thought that if what the Lunatics said about the treasure is true, then it's up to the Thundercats to get it back. But Snarf says that even though he agrees, there's a problem. While the rest are on New Thundera, and of course the Crystal Canyon itself is a very strange place. But even so, Lionel says that they must do what they can. Gee, I wish Panther were here right now, Snarf says, even though Lionel agrees, but said that there's no time for wishing about it right now. They had to get Linkso and Tygra and get into the Thunderstrike so they can get to the Crystal Canyon right away. So they head off. So, in the Thunderstrike, we have Lionel, Linkso, Snarf, and Tygra. Good news, they have arrived at the Crystal Canyon. Now, Lionel made a compliment to say how beautiful the canyon looks. Now, Linkso happens to agree with him. Then, long story short, after Linkso looks at the patterns very carefully, he said, if I'm not mistaken, those patterns can lead us to the Keystone right here in this canyon. Now, Snarf, after he learned about it, he couldn't help but ask himself, what is a Keystone? Because he's never heard anything like it before. So Snarf was asking Linkso what it was, and of course Linkso was more than happy to answer that. He said the Keystone is a source of energy. So the Thunderstark heads off to where the Keystone was located. But what the Thundercats didn't know is that someone else was also there, and that would be Allura and Chilla of the Lunatics. So after Snarf, Linkso, Tygra, and Lionel knew what they saw, of course, Chilla's in the Ice Runner, and of course, Allura's in his rocket pack. So, what Lionel said is that they had projected themselves in the canyon. Now, Linkso is really confused and said that he finds this really weird. He couldn't tell which ones are the real ones and the fake ones. So, after Lionel told Linkso to take a best guess, that's when Linkso didn't hesitate to start shooting at the reflections. So that's what he did. So while that's going on, back with Alluro, he just throws the Hypno Ball at the Thundercats in the Thunderstrike, and he does what he knows best, tries to hypnotize them, saying that they don't have a chance and etc. Long story short, while Allura was busy hypnotizing the Thundercats, both he and Chilla came out. So Chilla does what she knows best. She throws the Thunderstrike in ice. So Linkso told Lionel that the situation itself is pretty grim. We must not give up, and we must not give in either, Lionel said. So all Linkso did was that he fires the laser at the Lunatics, Chilla, and Allura, but it missed. So, as you may have guessed it, the Lunatics is about to knock the Thunderstrike out of control. So that's what they did, and of course the situation got worse. So, as the Thunderstrike was ready to crash, that's when Tygra panicked and said that there's no way they're getting out of there. So, Lionel just told Snarf to brace himself for an impact, so he did. And so finally, the Thunderstrike crashed. Back with the Thunderstrike that had just crashed, the Thundercat that just ejected out was Tygra. Next one out was Linkso. So by the time that both Chilla and Allura arrived, that's when they thought they had finished them off, or so they thought. And so after that, they left. Now back with Tygra, who just woke up from unconsciousness, he had no idea what's going on, but he had earlier had been ejected, and he just hit his head. He was looking for Lionel everywhere, but luckily he heard the voice of Link, so he'll be all right. So when Tiger approached Linkso, he asked, "Are you okay?" Now, good news, according to Linkso, he just told Tiger that he'll be all right and not to worry about it. But Tiger is getting worried and concerned, and he has every right to be because Linkso couldn't move his legs. And when Linkso was asking Tiger where did Lionel go, well, Tiger didn't have to look very far because over his shoulder was Lionel and Snarf. So, back with Tygra, he knows that there was no time to lose, so he climbs up to rescue Lionel and Snarf. Well, luckily for Tygra, he knows that Lionel's still alive and so is Snarf. So what he did is that he grabs Lionel and Snarf and got them back down to join up with Linkso. Now getting worried, and he was asking Linkso if Lionel's going to make it and if he's going to survive. Of course he will, Snarf said. He is the leader after all. He's not kidding. Although Linkso agrees with Snarf, but then said, but there's no guaranteed whether he will or not. Linkso, he even said that Lionel's injuries are pretty bad. So what are we going to do about it, Snarf said. We have to save him somehow, he suggested. Linkso made a suggestion that there might be a way to save Lionel. With what? How? Tiger said. I know this sounds crazy, Linkso said, but the Keystone might be the only way, he suggested. And Linkso also suggested that with the Keystone's energy, it may save Lionel and fix up the Thunderstrike. Tiger's gonna need you in this, he tells Snarf. Linkso also told Snarf that while he and Tiger are doing that, he has to stay behind with Lionel because he can't move much anyway. Before heading off, that's when Snarf told Lionel, "Don't worry, we'll get the Keystone for you. I won't let you down," he said, and so he and Tigra head off. So back with Snarf and Tigra, they're now on a mission, and they saw the assassin caverns when they arrived at the cavern, just like what Linkso said, and they lay straight to the Keystone. Long story short, Snarf just told Tigra that there's a cave up ahead, and if their hunch is correct, the Keystone's inside, so they went in. Now that Tiger and Snarf are in the cave, they're trying to be as quiet as they could be so they could get to the next room where there's a glow up ahead. So they did it even without a problem. But after a long story short, that's when Snarf slipped, and that's when Tiger catched him. And luckily, they managed to escape from the falling stalagmites. They went into the next room. Now, luckily for Tiger and Snarf, they'll be all right. But then when Tiger saw a glowing up ahead and it came from a keystone itself, he was going to grab it, but then something wouldn't allow it. But then Tiger had to say to himself, "Come on, get a hold of yourself. Just grab it and give it to Lionel." So that's what Tiger did. The tiger, the moment he grabbed the keystone, he was glowing. He was amazed. He was in awe. So he says, "This is true. This keystone does have a lot of energy." And when Snarf woke up, he saw that Tiger was glowing. So back with Tiger after he finished pleading the case, so Snarf says, "Well, what are we waiting for? Let's give it to Lionel right away." "Lionel?" Tiger asked. "Oh my goodness, I almost forgot." "You almost forgot," Snarf said. So what Tiger did is that he picked up Snarf, and so he said, "Well, let's give it to him." And so they left the cave. So back with Link, so he's still with Lionel. That was until Tiger and Snarf came back. Well, good news, Tiger brought the keystone with him. So Tiger asked Link so how Lionel's doing. By the looks of it, Link said things are not going so well. In fact, what Linkstone told Tigris to give Lionel the Keystone right away, so Tigra did, and before you know it, thanks to the Keystone, Lionel was revived. Long story short, Tigra gives the Keystone to Linkso, and asked how great it was. Next thing you know, Linkso was glowing, just like what Tigra did. Next thing you know, Lionel begins to sit up. So back with Lionel, who just sat up, he had no idea what's going on. He had no idea what had happened or where he is. And that's when his spiritual mentor Jaga shows up and said that there's a problem with a keystone and it is dangerous, he said. Then Jaga said that there's a bigger problem. Whoever possesses the keystone will be dependent on it. So what Jaga is saying to Lionel that In the end, the Keystone will destroy him, and that would mean Tygra himself, and so after that he disappeared. So back with Lionel now that he realized that it was the Keystone that saved his life, but there's something even better. Nixo can stand up again, so that means the Keystone just fixed his legs. He was miraculously in awe. Well, Lionel grabs the Keystone away from Linkstone and then tosses it aside and then told him that there's a problem and that the Keystone itself is very dangerous, he said. And remember, it was Jaga who told him so. Then Lionel says, wait, there's more. Because Jaga also told him that whoever possesses the Keystone will be a slave. So, back with Tygra, he was about to run to get the Keystone back, but then Lionel grabs his arm and says, you have to listen to me. So Tygra says, get out of my way. Tygra pleaded a case to say we needed that crystal anyway, so he went to pick it up. So he then continues to plead a case with Lionel to say that this Keystone saved his life, and of course in Tygra's case he's not wrong, and it's just like Link so when the Keystone fixed his legs. So back with Tygra after he pleaded a case to say that the Keystone will help them, and although Lionel agrees and says you're right, it is powerful. The catch is, according to Lionel, what he tells Tygra that every power has its price. Even though Tygra said that is indeed true, but then asked the question, what's the harm of having so much power? Snarf has his turn to plead his case to Tygra to say, if I were you, I listen to Lionel. He knows what he's talking about. He is the leader. So then Tygra snapped back and says, how dare you take his side? I would have known you would do that, he said. Snarf says, oh my goodness, I didn't mean anything of that. So Lionel asked him a question. What's going on with you anyway? So Tygra finally snapped out of it and then apologized to Snarf and says, I'll go fix the Thunderstrike right away. And so he heads off. So back with Tygra, he went ahead to fix the Thunderstrike. While that's going on, Lionel and Linkso have a conversation with each other. So Linkso suggested to Lionel to keep an eye on Tygra because he's getting worried and concerned, and he has every reason to. Because he said that already the Keystone is taking control of Tygra. So Lionel agrees with Linkson and says, you're right, this is a problem. The biggest one that the Thundercats had ever faced. So back with Tygra, still having a keystone in his hand, and he realized that the Thundering core has been damaged thanks to a lure of the Lunatics who shot at the Thunderstrike earlier. But luckily for the keystone that Tygra had earlier, the Thundering core is all fixed up. So you know that this means the Thunderstrike can work again. So the Thundercats just heard the good news from Tygra that the Thunderstrike's all fixed up and they're ready to leave. After hearing the good news, that's when everybody left the Crystal Canyon. So back at the Kessler's hangar, now you can tell that Tygra's very overjoyed of the way the Keystone fixes things. So he pleaded himself a case that if Panthro can fix things, I can too with this Keystone, but even better. But then Tygra heard someone coming from behind and thought they were the Lunatics, but instead they were Lionel and Linkso. And by accident, Tygra just threw a wrench at them. And I says, whoa, take it easy, Tygra. So Tygra apologized and says, please do me a favor, don't ever sneak up on me. So Lionel said that Linkso and himself are worried about Tygra, and he has every reason to. He said, listen, this Keystone's doing something to you and it's altering your personality and etc. So overhearing this, that's when Tygra pleads his case to say, if that's true, and if that's the case, this Keystone changed me for the better, he said. So Tygra pleaded his case by asking a question. I suppose it's threatening to you, right? And Lionel says no, and just before he could finish his sentence, that's when Tygra continues to plead a case to say ever since he was a child he was shy, but thanks to this Keystone he was confident and etc. Then Linkso has his turn to tell Tygra that what Lionel said was true, and that the Keystone itself is making him a slave. And Tygra says, really? A slave? Was Lionel a slave to his Sword of Omens? Of course not, because he's the master of it, he said. Then Tygra says, with this Keystone, I'm the master. With Lionel again, he tries to beg and plead to Tygra to just listen to him, but then Tygra says, that's enough. I have work to do. and so he heads off. So later that night, back at the Kessler's hangar, that's when Tiger had pleaded his case to say how jealous the Thundercats are and etc. Then, long story short, Snarf came in with some breakfast for Tygra and asked if he wanted some. So Tygra says, "Oh, Snarf, it's you. You scared me." So after Snarf explained to Tygra that he made his pancakes for him, so Tygra says, "Thanks, but I'm not hungry." So Snarf says, "You gotta eat something. You haven't eaten in 2 days." So even though Tiger agrees and says he doesn't need any food, he has something even better than that. At least he told that to Snarf. So later in the control room, I'm guessing Snarf told Lionel the bad news. I can't say for sure, but Lionel said that he had no idea just how dependable on that Keystone that Tigra is. So Lionel told Snarf that he has every reason to worry about Tigra. "Well, at least everything here is calm," Snarf said, "but not so fast." That's when both he, Snarf, and Lionel just heard the alarm going off. Back with Lionel, he realizes that someone's attacking the Burble village. Before heading off, he told Snarf to stay in the control room and to not leave his post for anything, and so Lionel heads off. Oh, you're probably wondering what happened to the rest of the Thundercats? Don't worry, they'll show up later. Meanwhile, at the Burble village, as the Roll Bear Burble started to run everywhere, and that's because they were being attacked by Alluro of the Lunatics. So, back with Alluro, he does what he knows best, tries to hypnotize the Roll Bear Burbles, but then someone attacked him from behind, or should we say, something. It's the Thunderstrike, and it has Tygra, and he pleaded his case to say to Alluro to pick on someone his size. Then, long story short, after Tiger had attacked Alluro and thought he had him, or so he thought, but then Alluro snatched the Keystone away from Tigra. Oh, I forgot to mention that also in the Thunderstrike were Lionel and Link So when Tiger said, "I must get the Keystone back," but Linkso says, "Tigra, wait!" And then Lionel runs to catch up with him, says, "Let the Keystone go." But Tigra refused and said, "I can't live without it." So back with Alluro, who's now on the ground, he picked up the keystone and he started glowing, just like what Tygra did. So long story short, Alluro pleaded a case to say, "Hey, I like this." He hears Tigra's voice coming from behind. He said, "Hand it over, Alluro." So Tigra told Alluro that the keystone belongs to him and to give it to him, but Alluro refused and said, "If you want it, you'll have to take it from me." So Tiger decided to beg and plead for Laurel to give it back, but Laurel tells him that all of that's not going to get him anywhere. Then Laurel told Tiger that with the Keystone he could be more of a leader than Luna was. Back with Lionel and Link, so it's now their turn to stop Laurel, but they fail miserably, so he does what he knows best, hypnotize them. Then, long story short, as Leroy continues to plead a case to say he couldn't wait to see the expressions on his friends' faces and that he has plans for Lionel and his friends and etc. Then Tigra said to Alluro, "I won't let you do this to the Thundercats." "Really?" Alluro says. "Well, I have the crystal and you don't." Things are looking bad until back with Lionel, who's still under Aluro's mind control, and so is Link but won't be for long because he's not going to allow any of this to happen with him and his friends. So guess what he did? He did what any good guy would do, project a Thundercat signal from his sword. So he did. And guess what? Thanks to the Thundercat signal, Tiger got his strength back. Back with Alluro still in the Thunderstrike, he told Lionel, "Not bad, but there's a problem. Your friends are still on New Thundera, and it won't do you any good because Tiger's a coward." "Well, we'll just see about that," Tiger's voice said. And when Alluro looked over his shoulder, he couldn't believe it. So after Alluro said, "No, impossible," and Tiger decided to dodge all of his attacks. And after he did that, Tiger told Alluro that he's going to do better than that. So guess what Alluro did? He was about to get away in his rocket pack, but not so fast. Tiger just ripped it in half, but better than that, he used the bullet whip to crack the keystone in half. Now that he found out that the crystal's been cracked in half, thanks to Tygra and his whip. He ran to catch up with it, and by the time Allure picks up one half and demanded to have the crystal's power, but it disintegrated. When the other half fell right into the ravine and Allure failed to catch it, he said, "Oh no!" And the crystal, the other half of it, broke. Oh, and as for Allure, he fell over the cliff. Oh, I forgot to mention what the plan was. Both Chilla and Allure earlier wanted to trick the Thundercats, but that plan backfired thanks to Tiger, who not only got his strength back, oh, and as for Allure's mind control, it was broken. So back with Linkstone and Lionel now no longer under Allure's mind control. What Linkstone wanted to know from Tiger, what happened? What's going on? Are you okay? Well, I'm more than that, Tiger said. I've never felt better. So then it's Lionel's turn to ask a question. What happened to Allure? Well, let's just say it happened to him what it almost did to me, Tiger said. So, yes, it's true. Tiger's now back to normal, so now it's time for everyone to leave and head back to Castler. So that's exactly what they did. So meanwhile, back at Castler and in the control room, remember the rest of the Thundercats? They just came back from New Thundera. Told you we'd get back to them later. And guess what they did? They brought back some souvenirs. One for Snarf, which is a Snarf nip. That's something that would go crazy over. A Thundrillium stone for Lino, a sandy tail Vucci as a pet for Linkso, and last but not least, a genuine crystal scepter for Tygra. So Tygra not only thanked Panthro for the scepter that he received, but he asked a question. Do you have one made of wood? Well, you know what this means. That means that Tygra had definitely had learned his lesson that day. So that ends episode 8.